want to go back to the civil liberties issues because there have been problems with the Trump administration exploiting what's happening with this pandemic for their own political projects. So, for instance, the Department of Justice under Attorney General William Barr contacted federal judges and indicated that they would like these judges to hold suspects indefinitely if the White House would like that. Even if they haven't officially been charged with something, which of course, will continue to deteriorate our already lacking criminal justice system. I'm curious if you've followed that story at all and if you can comment on it.
So I haven't actually heard about that particular story. And if anything, that might underscore the point you're making, right? Which is that when there's this kind of intense, constant fear, and we're all focusing on this deadly disease, power centers do get away with a lot more than they otherwise would be able to get away with. I mean, that's something that in ordinary times would never get past my detectors. It's really in the wheelhouse of what I write, and it's just not something I even heard about. And I think I've just noticed, in other instances where I've tried to raise concerns about what the Trump administration is doing with regard to civil liberties or what particular governors are doing here in Brazil, the same thing, there's very little to even want to hear about that. And I understand why, because when you're hearing constantly about, people dying hideous deaths or even suffering so severely, even if they recover. I mean, Michael alluded to that earlier. We all are now starting to know people personally who have become infected, who have suffered greatly, or who have died. It seems like to most people that it doesn't make a lot of sense to worry all that much about steps that the government is taking in order to fight off this virus, to keep us alive. I know, that video that you started off showing that went viral, I got attacked by a lot of people, like Silicon Valley defenders and authoritarians, is saying that, oh, look, my priorities are so inverted that I would care about this harmless robot, when in reality, all it's trying to do is this really benign function of warning people to maintain social distancing. Nobody really wants to think about, when they're scared, what the government is doing. And the governments know that. That's why they like for fear levels to be high, because sometimes we just are distracted and we don't even notice what they're doing. But then when we do notice what they're doing, that fear is such a potent component of our psychological makeup that it's very easy to exploit. Oh, we're just doing it for your own protection. So I can't comment specifically on that particular initiative, but the fact that I can't is kind of disturbing.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly the point. And it was an initiative a couple of weeks ago that Bill Barr, it was something that would have had to go through Congress because it was a DOJ request, but essentially it would, in times of quote unquote emergency, as very broadly defined, basically, allow trial without detention. I mean, it would be a direct threat of habeas corpus. They tried, they put out a bureaucratic, no, this is just logistical, but the consequence is the consequence of it. There was also something in it, I don't know what happened with it, of potentially being able to charge people with bioterrorism if you knowingly expose somebody to the coronavirus. So there's a lot to it.
Quickly interrupt, it's funny because when, I've talked about this before, prior to 9/11, I wasn't paying a lot of attention to politics. I was focusing on my law practice. I thought that was more kind of consequential and impactful. The politics of the 1990s seemed kind of small scale, with the Lewinsky sex scandal that never really interested me. There weren't, it was after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War, and just seemed like there wasn't a lot at stake. And after 9/11, one of the first things that really re-grabbed my attention when I, in terms of politics, was this case of Jose Padilla, who was a U.S. citizen who was in Afghanistan and returned to the United States, and who was arrested at Chicago International Airport, at O'Hare Airport. And the government, the Bush administration, charged him as an enemy combatant and put him in a military brig in North Carolina with no charges, no trial, no lawyers, nothing, and kept him there for 2.5 years. And it shocked me not just that the U.S. government had done that, but that it received nobody cared, because it was March of 2002. It was 5 months after the 9/11 attack. People were still petrified. The anthrax attack came after that. And that was when I saw, wow, when you put the population in fear, you can do anything, right? Like, that's the line that we always think will never be crossed, that the government will have the power to start rounding people up, which, as I'm listening to you, is what Bill Barr is suggesting, and kind of claim the power to imprison American citizens without any due process rights, no habeas corpus. But the government did do that, and not just in theory, but in practice after 9/11, and it received very little attention. That was one of the first things that propelled me to want to start writing about politics.
Glenn Greenwald, we're really grateful that you did that, and we appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Congratulations on the new show, guys. Thanks for having me.